What's up everybody, Supercharging fan here for another weekly update. So I know usually I start off in the car, but considering the car was in the garage basically the entire week this past week while I was in LA and SEMA and all that kind of stuff, there's nothing new with the Mustang, and I got 2 weeks of news here to catch up on with you guys, so I just figured I'd jump right into the news. So lots of exciting revealings going on here right before the LA Motor Show, which is coming up next week. And so the first of those is the 2018 Volkswagen Golf and GTI, which have been unveiled, along with the GTE. And so these are the European versions, so you know this isn't 100% accurate probably as to what we'll get in the States, but should be pretty close. As far as the exterior goes, you know, it's just a light refresh here. It's not like a completely new platform or anything like that. Still the same platform, just been heavily revised here and looks really good. You got full LED taillights now that have some animated turn signals. Not sure if those will make it to the States because of our weird regulations, but fingers crossed, hopefully they do. And then there's also LED headlights and you know, a nicely done front bumper there that, you know, are different obviously depending on the different models, and so they look very good on the outside. Mechanically, they're also a nice bit of improved here. So first off, the new Golf is going to have a standard 1.5 liter 4-cylinder engine in Europe. According to the PR people, that engine might not come to the States here initially. It might get the carryover engines at first, but if we do eventually get that engine, it's going to have 148 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque from that little tiny 4-cylinder, which is a pretty impressive amount of power there. But the big news here for the GTI, which we'll probably be getting the same numbers most likely here in the States, is the most exciting for us enthusiasts. And so the new GTI is going to have 227 horsepower for the standard model, which is an improvement over the previous one's 210 horsepower. And then the performance model is going to have 242 horsepower, and that's an improvement over the 220 that it previously had. So 242, very respectable there for the GTI. They're also going to be getting the new 7-speed dual clutch transmission. It's going to be in all the Golf models, and it'll eventually slowly replace the 6-speed version, you know, DSG there that they currently have. And then as far as the interior, that to me is even the most impressive thing about this restyle. They completely digitized it. So now this is an optional fully loaded interior, but you're looking at a 9.2-inch display there for the center. That's got all kinds of swipe and very high-res glossy display there, a huge improvement over the current Volkswagen infotainment system. And then you have Volkswagen's virtual cockpit, their version of Audi's virtual cockpit, and so that obviously has many of the same features. Looks a little less futuristic than the Audi version, but still awesome, you know, completely high resolution, very cool display there that you get. And so very, very awesome to see those huge improvements that they've done here to the Golf and the GTI. And I'm sure we'll be getting the same improvements to the Golf R here soon as well. Another Volkswagen that was debuted was the 2018 Volkswagen Atlas, which is their new 3-row large crossover SUV. It's basically roughly the same size as a Ford Explorer, and that's what it's primarily competing against, along with, you know, the Chevy Traverse and you know, all, you know, Dodge Durango, Highlander, and the Honda Pilot. And so as far as the looks go, to me, it's a little generic looking, if I'm honest. It's not the most exciting thing to look at there. And on the inside, it does have that same cool digital gauge cluster that, you know, the new Golf here is going to have. But as far as the thing goes, you know, it's on the company's MQB architecture. And, you know, apparently even the third row seats are usable for adults, for 2 adults there in the back. So, you know, should be a nicely sized crossover here. The engines it's going to have, you can either get a 3.6 liter VR6 that does 280 horsepower, or you can do a 2 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that makes 238 horsepower. Now, the 4-cylinder is only going to come with front wheel drive, but you can get all wheel drive as an option there on the 6-cylinder model. So, pretty nice there. I think this is really the first Volkswagen that's been made specifically for the American. You know, these large crossovers are all the rage, and so hopefully it'll help to give Volkswagen a much needed boost. Some news from Porsche this past week. They've unveiled a couple new variants for the Panamera here before the LA Auto Show next week. And so the first is the new base model Panamera, because currently it's been the totally new Panamera has only had the S trim and then the turbo trim. We haven't seen a base one until now. And so it uses a variant of the same 2.9 liter turbocharged V6 that's in the S that does like 440 horsepower, I believe, in the S. In the base model here, though, it's going to be doing 330 horsepower, which is still 20 more than the previous base Panamera that had that naturally aspirated 3.6 liter V6. And it's going to come standard with rear-wheel drive. Of course, you can do the Panamera 4 and get the all-wheel drive if you'd like. So that's the first variant that they did. The second one is a new long wheelbase version called the Executive. They're 5.9 inches longer in wheelbase, and of course make it a lot more luxurious there, especially for rear seat occupants. You can get all kinds of fully loaded, opulent kind of features, such as tablets there in the back and all that kind of stuff. And so very cool. They've offered those there, and so as far as pricing goes for these new models, the base Panamera with that little V6 is going to be starting at $86,050, and so if you want the all-wheel drive version of that, it's going to be $90,650. So these Panameras are not cheap, even in base form. That's crazy. And then if you want the Executive, even in the base Panamera 4 trim stretched out there, it's $97,000 roughly, and $105,000 if you want the e-hybrid version of that. So very pricey, but the new Panamera looks great, and so hopefully it'll find its way into lots of homes soon. I think they're going to be coming out here next year. Lots of Volkswagen and Audi group news. The next is that Audi has officially unveiled the 2018 Audi A5 and S5 Cabriolet, and they look exactly like how you would expect the convertible versions of the A5 and S5 to look. Those cars weren't a huge difference over the previous gen. They're all new or whatever, but they don't look a whole lot different to me. And same goes for the convertibles here. They still look nice nonetheless. Unfortunately, they're launching them in the middle of winter time, which isn't the greatest, but they'll be on sale next year for those, once it does warm up here. And they have all the same powertrains as the new A5 and S5. For those that missed those cars when they came out a few months ago, they're going to be doing 252 horsepower and 273 pound-feet of torque with the base 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder in the A5. That's better than the 220 horsepower of the previous model. They're going to have an 8-speed automatic in all of these, and then if you are to go up the S5 Cabriolet, then you get the 3-liter turbocharged V6 that has 354 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque, which is, again, a nice improvement there of 21 horsepower and 44 more pound-feet of torque over the old supercharged V6. So, but even though they have more power, they are just as fast as the old ones. They didn't get any additional performance. 5.1 seconds 0 to 60 still on those, and all-wheel drive is standard. A car that's getting a refresh here that's going to be shown at the LA Auto Show is the restyled 2017 Nissan Versa Note, which it's mechanically unchanged. They just kind of gave it the new corporate front end there, and made it a little nicer looking on the inside as well as the outside. And so good to see that. They also are unveiling a new Black Pearl edition of the Juke. They're only making 1,000 of them. 250 are going to Canada. They're going to be roughly $1,200 additional over a standard Juke in the SV trim or whatever. And so it's just this special paint color essentially, and a little bit different there, but cool to see that nonetheless. And then a couple interesting things here from Ford this past week. First off, they just basically announced, it's really strange, but DJ Khaled is going to be doing the announcement on Snapchat for the new 2017 or 2018 Ford Ecosport. It's spelled Ecosport, but apparently it's supposed to be pronounced Ecosport. I'm sure no one is going to pronounce it like that, unfortunately. But anyway, so it's going to be shown in LA next week. I think the debut is going to be on Snapchat on Monday, and it's basically the Ecosport's been around for a while here as in other markets, not in the United States, based on the Fiesta platform and just a lifted up Fiesta. Essentially, it looks a little more aggressive, and we're going to be seeing the North American version here next week at the LA Auto Show. This is going to be one of the 4 new SUVs that Ford promised to deliver here, I think, in the next few years. And so, with how popular these small crossovers are, I'm sure this thing will sell very well, and expect it to have a similar, corporate Ford face like you would expect, some fusion elements and things like that. So yeah, look for that next week. And of course, follow me on Twitter at SuperDurksFan, where I tweet all the news stories happening as they happen. And another thing, speaking of the Fiesta, though, is the 2018 Fiesta itself was spied running around overseas. And so, we can see some hints there. Again, the grille looking a lot like the new 2017 Fusion grille. And the Fiesta is going to be all new here for this 2018 model. And so, should be a nicer interior, have more safety tech and all that kind of stuff. And, might be roughly roughly the same size, maybe a tiny bit larger. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, cool to see that nonetheless. Another car that was spied this past week is the next generation 911. And while it doesn't look all new, this is still just a rough mule using the existing body, but just running on probably a different architecture because it's using wider front fenders there and things like that to kind of mask the fact that it doesn't quite line up perfectly with the body because it's an old body on a new platform here. And so they're saying that this will probably debut in 2018 as a 2019 model year car. There's no word as to what the new version is going to be called, because we had the 997 and then they went back to 991 for the current generation 911. So it could be 992, could be 998, who knows. But anyway, interesting to see that and hear some of the rumors. They're saying that the platform, they want it to be designed so that it can be shared between the 911 and the 718 Cayman Boxster combo there. So they're saying that it would have to accommodate a mid-engine layout as well as a rear-engine layout. Now this also opens up the possibility of there being a mid-engine 911 at some point. That again is one of those crazy things that may or may not happen. Maybe like a end of the generation type deal, like with a Cayman GT4 where they finally gave it the engine everyone wanted. Who knows? That's again just a really far out rumor there, but maybe there will be a mid-engine 911 in one day because it sounds like the platform could support it technically. So interesting to hear that. They're saying that they also would like to share the platform possibly with other Volkswagen Group products. So they're saying that this mid-engine platform could also underpin a next generation Huracan and R8. So, the Huracan and R8 are still really, really fresh. So don't look for that for another, at least 5 years, probably more like 8 to 10 years. But again, this is just a very futuristic platform that's going to be underpinning stuff for, a good while, probably another decade or so. But again, that's not going to be showing up even in the 911 until most likely 2018 as a 2019 model. So interesting to see that. Another car that's going to be getting a redo is the Ferrari F12 Berlinetta. So it was just spied. The new one was spied running around, and apparently it's going to be called the F12 M instead of Berlinetta. And so basically what we're looking at here is a bit like a heavy refresh, similar to how the Ferrari FF turned into the GTC4 Lusso. Most likely something along those lines. So they're going to be, definitely restyling the front end and the back end, changing it up. Should still be roughly the same, platform and all that kind of stuff. And then, as far as when we'll be seeing this, the rumor is the 2017 Geneva Motor Show here early next spring. And so there's really not much more that we know about it, except that it could possibly be getting the same twin-turbo V8 engine that's in the GTC4 Lusso T that was just unveiled a couple of months ago. That could find its way into the F12, but they said that the naturally aspirated V12 is still safe, much like how it is in the GTC4 Lusso, and it will retain both engines and just have two options there for probably a slightly lower priced F12 M there. And so I'm really excited to see how the styling changes look. We can't hardly see anything with this camouflage on, so it's all going to be a surprise. And the V12 should be getting a power bump as well, so it might even match like the TDF's performance, maybe slightly less or maybe slightly more, who knows. But very exciting to see they're going to be continuing with the V12 still, and it's going to be getting a nice refresh. So and thankfully we're not going to be seeing any kind of hybrid powertrain in the F12M. That will be coming for the next generation. And that segues nicely into the next story this week, which was not great news, and that is that the Ferrari CEO announced that he has plans to add hybrid elements to all the Ferraris by 2019 in order to boost their sales. They're currently doing, I think, like 8,000 cars a month, and they're projected to do like 9,000 cars, not per month, sorry, per year, 9,000 cars per year, I think in the next year or two. But by 2020, I think 2025, they want to get to 10,000 cars sold per year. And so they think that adding hybrid elements is what's going to help them do that. They're saying that doing these smaller displacement, lower cost models like the GTC4 Lusso T and things like that will help them to get to that number. I personally think that's not a wise choice. I think even Lamborghini, in the past few months here, has said how they're committed to, being naturally aspirated and, not worrying about the fuel economy stuff and things like that, and just, going all out there and not worrying about the hybrid stuff, at least not for their core models. There might be new models, but for Ferrari to say that they're adding hybrid stuff to every single model in the lineup, is kind of like this, like it's kind of sad because, you know, I mean, I'm sure it's not going to hurt. I mean, look at the LaFerrari, that has hybrid elements and it just adds to the performance. And that's what they'd be focused on, is making those things boost performance and probably fill in the gaps where the turbos aren't on full boost and things like that. But still, you know, it's going to be kind of a little more complicated, not quite as pure, unfortunately. And so might be seeing the end of a Ferrari era here in 2019. But we'll keep our heads up and stay optimistic about it. But pretty crazy news there. Other electric news this past week is that Tesla, according to Elon Musk's tweets, it's hinted that they're going to be planning a new Ludicrous mode Easter egg type deal for probably something beyond Ludicrous mode that they say is going to be designed to uncork the full performance of the P100D. So, I mean, the Model S with the P100D package already does 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. So, I don't even know how you go from there, honestly. I mean, it's already, you know, beating everything else in the world as far as 0 to 60 times go, at least. And so, not sure what it's going to be called or what they're going to plan on doing with it. But they said they could be, you know, rolled out as soon as next week, or at least a preview of it next week, and, you know, be rolled out in the coming months. But some not so great stuff coming in the next few months here is some pretty shocking yet unsurprising news at the same time, that Tesla is going to be discontinuing their completely unlimited, completely free supercharging network, which they announced back in 2012, you know, oh, if you buy a Tesla, it'll have free charging forever and da-da-da-da. And that will be true for any Tesla purchased or ordered before the end of this year. January 1st, 2017, every new Tesla that is ordered is going to have a limit to them. So basically, you're going to be limited to 1,000 miles per year. And after that, they charge you a small fee that they say will be comparable to the same kind of cost, or it'll cost less than filling up a comparable gasoline powered car. So who knows how much cheaper than a normal fill up it'll be, but they will be charging for electricity, which is no surprise to anyone. It shouldn't be, at least, because electricity is not free. And so, you know, them providing free electric charging forever seemed like a pie in the sky, unrealistic promise anyway. And so this is showing that that is in fact true. Now, of course, they put a positive spin on it, but they're saying that this will allow them to reinvest in the network, accelerate its growth, and bring all owners the best experience. Unless the best experience is a free experience, in which case it is not the best experience. But if you know, I think that the main complaint is that, you know, a lot of people are clogging up these supercharger charging stations just for daily driving and stuff, whenever the supercharger network is intended to help people on road trips. Otherwise, you're supposed to have enough range to be able to just charge your car at home every night when you get home, and that's it. So I think they kind of want to curb the people that are just like, hey, every time I go to near a supercharger station, I'll just plug it in even though I'm fine and top it off or whatever. And I think that's kind of what they're trying to discourage here with this. But at the same time, it still kind of sucks that it's you know, just discontinuing this promise that they made. And so if you want the unlimited charging, you better hurry up and get your Tesla ordered here before the end of this year. You have to take delivery of it by I think April 1st of next year in order to be eligible for the free charging. After that, you're going to have to pay, and it shouldn't be a huge amount, and people that can afford Teslas probably wouldn't complain too much. But, you know, for the people that are buying the Model 3, this could be, you know, a pretty upsetting thing. So, pretty crazy to see that. Now for back to some normal gasoline powered news here. There is a new report saying about, I guess, Dodge and Chrysler's future plans. Now, the plans here basically say that the Chrysler 300, the Dodge Charger, and the Dodge Challenger will all stick around until 2020 for the 20, and then the 2021 model year is whenever there will be a completely new platform underpinning those models. But only 2 of those models will remain, according to this rumor. So they're saying the Challenger will stick around, and then also either the Charger or the 300. It'll be one or the other most likely, and considering the Charger sells better than the 300, they may be getting rid of the 300, but then that would leave them without any kind of luxury sedan at all, and Chrysler would really just have the Pacifica, and that's it. So I'm not sure what the long-term plan there is. Who knows? Maybe there will be a different separate platform for a new 300 or something. But anyway, the platform that's going to underpin the new Challenger and Charger most likely, it's going to be the same platform that underpins the new Alfa Romeo Giulia. It'll just be stretched and modified a lot in order to accommodate those larger cars. And so what we're hearing is that in addition to the Charger and the Challenger, the new versions. This new chassis is supposedly stiff enough that it allows for a convertible version, which is the Barracuda we've been hearing about over and over and over again. And again, we're not totally sure how that's all going to play out, and we've many years here. But in the meantime, we said they're going to do a refresh for the Challenger again in 2018, give it some slightly updated looks. We know that the wide-body ADR model is coming for the Hellcat with wider tires, and also an all-wheel drive Challenger T, or GT, I should say. And those should all be coming here next year, and probably come along with that slight refresh. And then, like I said, 2020 for the 2021 model year is when we will see the all-new cars. Mercedes this past week unveiled 4 new engines, and 2 of them are inline 6s. They're all turbocharged, of course, but so here they are. There's a bunch of numbers, so I'm just going to read off all this stuff here. So there's going to be a 3-liter inline 6 that's gasoline powered. There's going to be a diesel variant. There's also going to be a 4-liter twin turbo V8, an all new one that they've developed, as well as a twin turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. And so yeah, as far as where all these engines are going into cars, we're not totally sure. All we've been told is that the new gas-powered inline 6 and the new V8 will power the 2017 S-Class when it gets a facelift. But otherwise, they don't know. I guess they haven't announced where all the other engines are going and all the applications. We just have that one currently. But as far as all the specs here for these engines, the gasoline-powered inline 6 turbo engine makes 408 horsepower and over 368 pound-feet of torque. And compared to the old V6 that did like 333 horsepower, this is a really nice improvement. And of course, all these engines are designed for high-tech fuel economy and things like that. So they all come standard with integrated starter alternator technology, and they also have an electric auxiliary compressor and intelligent turbocharging. So what all that means is, the ISG system handles a lot of the work when the vehicle is getting started from a stop, and then the electric auxiliary compressor fills in the gap until the larger turbo kicks in. So these turbos are spinning at 70,000 RPMs, by the way, which is pretty crazy, and it gets up to that speed in 1/3 of a second, which is pretty mind-blowing. And that ISG system is part of a 48-volt electrical system that also actually it handles the water pump and the air conditioning compressor, so that you don't have to worry about those drive belts, which actually shortens the length of the engines. And engineering explain, my buddy Jason can probably explain these a whole lot better and get into all the nitty-gritty details of them. But yeah, that's the gist of it, basically. And then the diesel one that we're not getting in the States here is rated at 313 horsepower and over 479 pound-feet of torque, which is, again, a nice improvement over the previous diesel V6. Now, this new twin-turbo V8 engine, it's codenamed M176, and it's promising to be one of the most fuel-efficient V8s that they've ever made. And so it's going to use the same kind of Camtronic technology to shut down for the cylinders whenever it deems it appropriate in order to improve the fuel efficiency. And so this new V8 is going to be rated at 476 horsepower and roughly 516 pound-feet of torque. And so that's 21 more horsepower than the M271 V8. And so yes, and then finally, there's going to be a new twin turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder engine that is going to be codenamed the M264, which has twin scroll turbochargers and that same belt-driven kind of starter alternator system there to help with all the electrical stuff. They didn't give any kind of engine details except that it will make approximately 134 horsepower per liter. So, it's, going to be very, very impressive there with all these engines. And, yes, so who knows what they'll all go in, but they all sound very good. And for the last few stories, like I said, lots of stuff. The first is that at SEMA this past week, Ford unveiled a couple of things. And I'm going to go through my favorite SEMA cars in a separate video this weekend. But I'm just going to hit on the few things that I think are the most important as far as the new car business is concerned. And the first is that Ford has unveiled the Mustang GT4, which is a non-street legal, race-only version of the Shelby GT350RC, essentially, that's just designed for GT4 class competition. suspension, and so it will be available for sale, though it has the same flat plane crank as the GT350 and 350R, but instead of the manual transmission, it has a 6-speed sequential transmission from Hollinger, and it's also got all kinds of suspension and chassis tweaks, a full roll cage, all that kind of stuff, and so very exciting to see that. And that means it's going to be able to compete in a lot of these different challenges, such as the Pirelli World Challenge and the GT4 European Series and things like that. So very exciting to see that that is actually available and for sale. And then another Ford thing is that they unveiled the new Ford Performance app that's going to be coming next year. And it's similar to the Chevy Performance Data Recorder system in a way. And so what this does is it's an app you use with your phone, but it also works with the Sync 3 system, and they kind of piggyback off of each other. And what it'll do is overlay a map of whatever track you're on and track your car so that you can compare lap times, and it'll keep track of all that for you, which is very cool. And then, unlike the Chevy system, which has a built-in camera to record all this stuff, it's basically you have to mount your smartphone in a way that it records video. If you wanted to do that, you don't have to. You can just record the data. But if you want to record video, you mount your smartphone in a way that it'll use your camera from your smartphone and overlay your track and all the performance metrics you want, and display that on the phone in a final video that's saved. It'll also be displaying all that information in real time on the Sync 3 system if you have it pulled up, and you can use the two interchangeably, they say, but I'm assuming for the GPS and stuff, unless you have a navigation equipped car, that you're going to have to have that. But so I'm not sure what models that's going to be included on. Of course, the Ford GT I think is the one they kind of advertised it for here, but I'm sure all the Mustangs will get it as well. And then I'm assuming it could really be used for any Sync 3 equipped Ford, but who knows? We'll have more details about that here hopefully sometime next year. And the last bit of news this week is also from SEMA, and that is that Dodge unveiled the Durango shaker concept, which I think isn't too far off from production. Fingers crossed they actually make this, because it would be really awesome to see this produced. So what we're looking at here is essentially a Dodge Durango that they gave the Challenger shaker treatment to. So it has the 6.4 liter 392 Hemi V8, which is out of the SRT Challenger and Charger, but also basically the same thing that's in the Jeep SRT. So it does 485 horsepower, 475 pound-feet of torque. Like all those, they actually cut the hood and put a little spacer in there so that the shaker hood popped up high enough there for the Durango, which is pretty awesome. And then as far as the interior goes, they gave it all kinds of cool bits, but the coolest thing was they put Viper seats in it, and not just in the front, in all 3 rows. This thing has 6 Viper seats in it, so it reduces the seating capacity by 1, but they're Viper seats, so that is awesome and well worth the sacrifice, I think. And so that probably wouldn't make it to production if they do ever in fact make some kind of awesome faster Durango, so very cool to see that. There's all kinds of modifications they made to it. Of course, it's more aggressive there. It's got Hellcat fog lights there in the lower air dam, and it just looks awesome and really sweet. And honestly, I think they should make this, because why should the Jeep Grand Cherokee SRT have all the fun as far as fast SUVs go? Drop that same motor in a Durango. You don't have to do the shaker hood or anything like that, although it would be fun. But just make a faster Durango. I don't know. That seems like a no-brainer to me as to why they haven't done that. I don't know. But hopefully the positive feedback from this will encourage them to do so, and maybe even do a Hellcat version one day. But anyway, that's it for all the news this week, guys. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Take care.